Magic in the Morning with BB Rexa, and it's time for just a tiny bit tarded, shall we say, chat with Mike Barrett, who had some road conditions coming in this morning. Good policies on Tuesdays. How you doing, my friend?
I am well, yeah. I took it a little slower just to be on the safe side, and I thought I had it. You were talking and announcing that next song as I was coming in. I'm like, oh, maybe he'll just go live, and we'll just... Nope. It wasn't quite ready. So sorry for my tardiness this morning.
Well, it's acceptable. You're here and you're safe. We had an interesting drive in this morning too.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot's gone on in a week. You always participating in pretty much every and anything in the insurance industry. You've recently done some traveling, but you and I had just a couple of seconds here. Your traveling time was, wow. Wow.
Yeah, I flew in to Austin, Texas for my meetings on Wednesday afternoon, and I was eating dinner with a friend of mine when we got the news of the plane crash in D.C. Certainly, heart went out to everybody there immediately. The amount of times I've flown into Reagan on both of those runways, really hit home. So, and then my layover coming home on Sunday was in Philadelphia, and of course the other plane crash there. So we took a moment of silence during our events in Austin. All of us taking time to remember those who perished so unfortunately. Realizing that air traffic, air travel is a very safe mode of transportation, but it's not perfect, as nothing is. So
I'm sorry, but I would have called Greyhound. We'll change.
I'm not going to lie, the thought crossed my mind.
All right.
It does bring a level of anxiety to those that are flying.
All right. Well, let's hit real quick on what you found out while you were down in Austin.
Yeah. So why I was down there is I'm the national director for the state of Vermont. So I represent Vermont on the national level for the Independent Insurance Agents and Brokers of America, also known as the Big I. You've also seen Trusted Choice as a name. It's all one large happy family of organizations. And I was there with my peers from across the entire country. So representation was there from all 50 states, minus just a few folks who couldn't make it. We had folks from the District of Columbia, all in representation with our executive committee, and had a great opportunity to collaborate. Had a good time talking to my friend Brad, who's from Southern California. Got to hear about his trials and tribulations. He was about 100 miles away from the zone of the big wildfires, but certainly the wildfires were a big part of our conversation, the need for addressing this in the insurance industry. There's already wildfire scores in the states like California who are of a higher risk of wildfire loss. But we see possibly both on the legislative front in different states and certainly on the national front some legislation that could be introduced to try to work harder to mitigate this, but also to help companies from the large losses. I mean, insurance, adverse selection is a problem, right? So, if I insure 5 houses on one street and there's a fire that takes out all 5 houses and it's all with the one company, that's bad. That's a very significant loss. And we're seeing in California with not enough companies in the marketplace, too few companies in the marketplace, they're really getting some adverse action with those claims. So.
Well, that definitely impacts the entire nationwide industry. But I mean, you look at what we've experienced in the last couple of years here in the Green Mountain State alone. I mean, who in the world would think of flooding would hit, East Linden and all over the state, but
Yeah.
I mean, it happened 2 years in a row, so there's all kinds of things going on.
Yeah, wildfires, flooding, and earthquake. I mean, seismic activity is always a concern too. And while we don't all have the same policies, so a flood policy paying out a claim may not affect your homeowner policy because it's not the same policy type. They're not funded the same way. They're completely separate animals. But where there is some level of correlation, there is the cost of materials, the cost of labor. And that can really impact all of us pretty significantly. So there's a long way to go. Our next event for that association will be in Washington, D.C., of all places, where we will be on Capitol Hill and we'll be meeting with our legislators to have serious and poignant conversations about making sure that the consumers are protected and that the insurance industry is doing what they can.
I think the big takeaway from this, because I've only got one other thing to ask you about here. I think the big takeaway is that our listeners are appreciating, one, you going to Austin to find out about this, but to also hear that the entire industry is looking to address it.
Our eyes are on this. Our fingers are on the pulse. We want to make sure that we're staying. No state is immune, so it's just as important for me as a representative from Vermont to be speaking and hearing about the impacts of events in California, as it is from somebody from Washington State to hear about the impacts of flooding in Vermont. We're all in this together, and it's a really good organization. And people go, "Wow, it must have been so nice to be down there." And I'm not going to lie, it wasn't sub-zero and snowing, but I tell everybody a conference room in Austin, Texas is the same humidity and temperature as a conference room here in Vermont. So it's about the same.
All right. On the lighter side, before you give folks their contact information, over the past weekend, we had a fundraising event for Northeast Kingdom Cancer Action Network. And the last thing I saw, which was, I think, the Wednesday before it, there was only 15 tickets left. How'd we do?
Sold out. We
Nice.
sold out on Friday midday, I believe. So a very exciting event. I got to witness it in pictures because I was out of town. But I've actually heard from a few people who said they had an absolute blast. And I'm talking about people who were not necessarily really that tuned into the NEK Can organization, but saw the event, thought it'd be fun, checked it out, had a good time. We'll most likely do it again. So a great way to raise money. Well over $5,000 raised, all going to NEK Can, all to support those in the Northeast Kingdom battling cancer.
Thank you, Mike, for all you and the crew do. Now, contact information for you at Barrett Insurance.
Sure. Give us a call. Barrett Insurance. We're on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. Our phone number is 748-5224. You can find us online, thebarrettagency.com. Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Mike. You have a great week.
You
okay?
too. See you next week.
Good Policies, 8:35 on Tuesday mornings with music from Jenny Kern coming up on our way to our Hometown Minute.